Hello everybody, I'm Krasi Attasio. I'm sidereal astrologer, and today I will talk about Pluto, the mystical, the mysterious Pluto, and I will talk from the point of view of the ancient Babylonian astrology. Now, we will say, yes, that Pluto, together with the other three trans-Saturnine planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, were found very late. Pluto especially was detected, according to official sources, somewhere in the 60s. So there is no place you would think to discuss Pluto from the point of view of the ancient astrology, but actually we have all the reasons to think that the ancients knew about the trans-Saturnine planets, and I will make a separate video about this because this is would be quite lengthy story, most probably, and my knowledge will come from the ancient mythology, of course, and texts in cuneiform. But now Pluto. So according to the sources that we have, Pluto was seen first somewhere in the 1960s, I think, if I remember well, but this is not so important. We have evidences to see that there are deities and divinities which pretty well fit the nature of Pluto. We know that Pluto rules Scorpio together with Mars, so we cannot exclude neither of them. And when we think of the nature of the sign Pluto rules, when we know that Scorpio is the sign that is the zodiacal constellation of Ishtar or Ereshkigal, or the invisible Venus, we also know that Scorpio is the sign which is ruling the 8th house in the zodiac, which is related to the incarnations, to the beginnings, to the endings, which is about the mystery, which is about the money of the others, which is about the secretive matters, and so much more, and the incarnations, reincarnations. So this pretty much fits this particular heliacal phase of Mars, which is his invisibility. So Mars is the one of the two rulers of Scorpio, and Mars as Mars, but Mars has different heliacal phases. Mars can be morning star, Mars can be evening star, Mars can also be invisible. And when Mars is invisible, he is the ruler of the netherworld, of the underworld. And this particularly fits the nature of Pluto. Mars invisible, the nature of the invisible Mars. There are also other texts which would suggest that Gaga is one of the sons of Saturn, could also fit very well the nature of Pluto. And this will still be quite malefic nature. But is it necessary to say that the nature of Pluto is malefic? Actually, when Pluto is well placed in the chart, he can be reason for people with very deep philosophical, esoteric thinking and knowledge. Such people can be very good natural psychologists, chirurgs, doctors. So it's not really necessarily, Pluto is not really necessarily malefic planet. In astrology, there is no bad and good. So let's go back to Pluto. Pluto, if we take that Pluto corresponds to this divinity, which is Nergal, Mars, who descends into the netherworld and who rules the netherworld, then it is perfect. It fits perfectly the nature of Pluto, because this is exactly what he is about. It is about death, rebirth, mystery, connection with death, dreams, esoteric sciences, esoteric knowledge. The very important thing here, of course, is Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is a powerful, mighty constellation, because Scorpio is where we are finding Antares, a very, very powerful royal star, which also has very much of the nature of Mars. That's why it's Antares, Ares. So Antares is a star which is has quite visible magnitude, and it can be seen on the evening star, and has powerful influence of rulership. So also we know that Scorpio is a sign which can be ruled by the invisible Mars, which can be responsible and is for very, very deep knowledge of any secret sciences. It can be responsible for clairvoyance, contact with dead people. If the ruler Pluto is well placed, then we will not be talking about ego. For example, afflicted Scorpio or badly placed can create people who have really ego, who are selfish, who would like to dominate others, for example. But if Pluto is placed in a sign like in a good relation with luminary, for example, or with the moon, we will have very good psychologists, people that would have powerful dreams with predictive value. We would have people who would be chirurgs or doctors. And this is also because there is a very specific degree in the sign of Scorpio. And this particular degree is, you can see my other video on the sacred degrees. This is the degree of Hermes, and this degree is associated with knowledge. So Pluto is about knowledge, it's about strategy. Also, another very interesting thing I will tell you, if we look at the heliacal phases of Mars, and if we say that the invisible phase of Mars very much resembles Pluto, and we can say that the Pluto exactly is Nergal, the god of the underworld. So when we know that Mars has different heliacal phases, the same like Venus and Mercury and the other planets, of course, for us, Pluto appears only as invisible planet. So this once again would mean that the planet is very mysterious. So, but let's go back to the invisible phase of Mars. Oftentimes, soldiers or people who have very Martian, aggressive, or too ambitious characters who have very strong Mars. Not necessarily bad. So people who would have powerful Mars, visible, morning star or an evening star, this will make difference, of course, but the point is that Mars will be visible. Such people would be good soldiers, would be athletes, would be doing Martian masculine profession. But when Mars is invisible, then oftentimes these people will not directly be seen as soldiers, but they would be those that do the strategy in war. You can see horoscopes of admirals, generals, people who rule the army and who will not have this visible Mars, who they would be more strategic. They would be hiding behind the scenes, most probably, and they would be known with their strategy and ruling power. So, in any case, Scorpio is about depth. It is about strategy and plans. Scorpio is not Pluto. Pluto will not be about. Before continue, just to tell you, also, of course, Pluto is about the sexual energy, of course, because this is the 8th house, and it is about when Pluto is afflicting certain place or is afflicted, then we can search in the horoscope issues with the sexual organs of women and men. But talking about the sexual energies, there is one text of Hermes who is saying that in invisible, when Mars is invisible, you see that often I compare the invisible Mars with Pluto, but there is huge resemblance. So when Mars is invisible in a chart, and it is a diurnal chart, the person is born in the day, then Hermes is saying that most probably the libido of the person will be low, and the other way around. Invisible Mars in nocturnal chart, then it will be very powerful. So, of course, Pluto is also associated with the sexuality of the people. And the relation between Pluto and Venus is very important if you want to judge or determine this particular part of the life of the people in the chart. There is another thing also very mythological and very interesting about Nergal, Pluto. It is that in the mythological texts of Mesopotamia, they are husband and wife. And then you see Venus, how she descends into the nether world. She becomes Ereshkigal, she becomes the invisible Venus. And then she's searching for her husband, Pluto. So to determine on one's love life and whether the person will be capable of deep emotional love and whether the person will meet partner, then you can follow up the relationship in the chart between Pluto and Venus. Oftentimes one opposition or a square between Pluto and Venus can be a sign that the person will have some issues with finding the right partner, issues with love. So this is also very important. This is in relationship to the nature of Pluto. Pluto can be very good, can be very much about depth. Depth in the way we experience love, depth in the way we understand the others, then depth in the way we perceive the universe, and how far we will go in researching the truthfulness, the knowledge of any science that we are engaged in, or just simply the knowledge of the universe. It all depends very much on Pluto. Of course, Saturn is also about our past lives. It is also about depth of knowledges, but Pluto is also very much about this. I noticed that before, when I was denying the existence of the trans-Saturnian planets, such as, of course, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, I was lacking some detail when I was analyzing horoscopes. And then when I was digging very much into the ancient texts of Sumer and Babylon, I understood that there is place and there is a must also to use these three planets because the ancients knew about them. Why they didn't use them in the analysis of the birth charts, it's another story, and I will really give separate time on this because it is fascinating. It is really very interesting, but they knew about it, and I suppose it's good that we also use them. So if you're searching for depth, if you want to, of course, Pluto can be Anareta, can be the killing planet. Certainly, there is always a planet which will send us to the other world. So Pluto can be responsible for this. Saturn also, Mars also, Uranus also, Neptunus not. But Pluto can also give very, very powerful transformations. It is transforming planet and always for good. The way we are being transformed probably and usually will not be easy because transformation caused by transiting Pluto towards your natal moon can be a very hard experience for 21 years, especially when it goes to the exact degree of the square, for example. But certainly, once this stage of your life is over, you will be in the next stage of your life, and then it will be for good. It will always be for good, and it will always be a knowledgeable experience. You can see, for example, one transiting Pluto who makes either via primary direction or simply as a transit, because the transits of the trans-Saturnian planets can be very, very powerful. So you can see such transit happening to someone's Venus, and doesn't matter whether this transit is harmonious or disharmonious. People can get into such deep emotional experiences with aspect of Pluto towards natal Venus, that this can be really, really something that they will never forget. I've seen people going through primary direction or just a parallel between Pluto and Venus on their descendant, for example, and they would go through such powerful and even painful falling in love that this was something that they will never forget. And this doesn't happen with everyone. It really depends how Pluto and Venus are placed in the natal chart of the person. So Uh, Probably I'm not saying everything about Pluto, because this is the most mysterious planet. But imagine, we cannot see Pluto with the naked eye, neither with a um, telescope. But imagine if that powerful, cold, ice planet was near us, how we would have perceived uh, his influences. I would think that this would be really, really, to a degree that we wouldn't be able to handle it. So imagine also, just before, yes, good that I didn't forget to say this. Imagine if somebody is born with Pluto rising, Pluto on the ascendant. This would give to the person the Plutonian features of mysticism. Of course, beauty. These people are beautiful. They will have deep expression, powerful expression, deep dark eyes. Often you will see them with deep um, dark hairs, white skins, and they would be magnetic and mysterious for the others. It doesn't mean that they would be dishonest, or they would be they would not have decent character. Just the other way around, they will be very decent. They will be um, not reviewing their thoughts. They will be the introvert. They will be difficult to communicate with, most probably, because of their mysticism. Most maybe we will never understand them, but these people are very interesting and they have depth. And yes, look how Pluto is placed in someone's chart towards the luminaries. Then you see how what kind of character the person has. So with this I'm completing, and soon I will make interesting video. I think for me is very interesting about the three trans-Saturnian planets and whether the ancients knew about them. Thank you.